Okay, so for today's deep dive, we've got a really interesting one. Someone sent us info about a dog food brand, I Love My Dog, and they're all about this natural approach. We've got some stuff from their website, like, little snippets and things, and a transcript from one of their YouTube videos, which is always fun to see. Oh, and a quick note mentioning the founder. It seems like our listener is really interested in what makes I Love My Dog different. So I'm excited to unpack this and, get into the nitty-gritty of their philosophy.
Yeah, it sounds like they're trying to go beyond just the usual marketing stuff. We need to figure out what actually backs up all their claims. What's at the heart of their whole approach to dog food and what it could actually mean for our furry friends.
Right, right. So, the first thing that really jumps out from the material is their massive emphasis on, 100% natural, top-notch ingredients. It's not just a side note, it's, everywhere. And they spend a lot of time highlighting what they don't put in their food. No artificial preservatives, no colorings, no flavorings. I mean, it makes you think, what's the real reason behind such a strong opinion on that?
Well, I think the fundamental idea here, and it's something you see a lot in this whole natural pet food movement, is that a dog's body thrives best on those whole, unprocessed foods. It's kind of like getting back to basics. Their argument is that these natural ingredients just make more sense because they're more in line with what dogs would have eaten, way back when. So in a way, they're saying this type of food is what a dog's system is really designed to handle and, use effectively.
I see. So it's like going back to their roots kind of thing. Makes sense. They also go beyond that and actually list a bunch of potential benefits you might see when you make the switch. For example, they talk about improved weight control, getting a better balance of fiber and muscle and less fat. And I think every dog owner out there wants their pup to be at a healthy weight, right? So what's the link there? How does natural food help with that?
So often you'll find these natural diets focus on whole food sources of fiber.
Yeah.
Right? And that can really help your dog feel full and satisfied so they're not constantly hungry and overeating. On top of that, when you're focusing on high-quality proteins like those with all the essential amino acids, that really helps build lean muscle. And more muscle actually means a healthier metabolism, so it's not just about cutting out fat. It's more like building a stronger, healthier body for your dog overall.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's a holistic approach. It's not just one thing. And they also mention, okay, let's be real here, easier digestion and, shall we say, more manageable poop. I mean, as a dog owner, that's a win in my book. But seriously, what makes that happen?
Right. Well, when you see more compact stool, it usually means the food is being properly digested. And natural diets, they tend to have fewer fillers. Those ingredients that don't really provide much nutritional value, that just add bulk that the dog can't really use. So when the food is made up of things that are easier to break down, you end up with less waste. It's pretty simple.
Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Now, here's something I always think about a healthy coat. I mean, every dog owner wants their dog to have a beautiful coat. And I Love My Dog claims that their natural food can actually strengthen the coat, make it look and feel better. What's the science behind that?
That comes down to the healthy fats, specifically omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, which you often find in things like salmon oil and flaxseed oil. These are really important for how skin cells function, and they can even reduce inflammation. So basically, you're nourishing the skin from the inside out, which results in a healthier, shinier coat.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, at least for me. They even suggest natural food can actually lead to a calmer, more stable temperament in dogs. Now, that's a pretty bold statement. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, that's a big one. Kind of gets into this whole idea of the gut-brain connection. The thinking is that a balanced gut microbiome, which some people believe is supported by a diet of, whole natural stuff, might actually influence a dog's behavior and how they handle their emotions. The research is still pretty new in this area, but you do hear a lot of pet owners saying they've noticed a positive change in their dog's mood after switching to a natural diet. It could be because they're getting more consistent energy without those spikes and crashes you sometimes see with processed foods and all those artificial ingredients.
That's fascinating. It makes you think, doesn't it? So they also talk about better hydration, saying the higher moisture content in natural food helps keep dogs, well, hydrated. That makes sense, especially compared to, dry kibble, which can be super dry.
Absolutely. Think about it. Fresh or raw natural food can be way more moist than that typical dry kibble.
Right.
And being properly hydrated is so essential for everything from how their kidneys work to their energy levels. So having that extra moisture in their diet can make a real difference.
Right, it's like essential for life, you know? And this one is something every dog owner dreams of: fewer trips to the vet. They actually suggest that by boosting defenses and antibodies, a natural diet could lead to fewer vet visits. How does that work?
Well, when you have a diet that's packed with essential vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, which you find in abundance in whole, unprocessed foods, it can certainly help their immune system stay strong. This means your dog is basically better equipped to fight off illness. But it's really important to remember that regular vet care, things like vaccinations and checkups, are still absolutely crucial. Diet is just one piece of the puzzle, not a replacement for the vet.
Right. It's like it can help, but it's not a magic cure-all. Okay, and lastly, they mentioned fresher breath and like a better appetite. Let's face it, some dog breath is, well, pretty intense.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. But seriously, a good appetite is a really positive sign. It usually means your dog is getting all the nutrients they need and, actually enjoying their food. And often, natural foods use real meat and other tasty ingredients without resorting to those artificial flavor enhancers. So they can be really appealing to dogs.
It's like real food, right? So all in all, it seems I Love My Dog is painting a pretty clear picture of how a natural diet can positively impact a dog's overall health and well-being. But if someone listening is thinking, okay, I'm on board with this, how do they actually make the switch? I noticed they talked about a couple of transition methods on their website.
Yeah, and that's a key point. Switching a dog's foods suddenly can cause some serious tummy troubles. They're smart to recommend a gradual transition. Their slower method takes 7 days. So you gradually increase the amount of I Love My Dog food while decreasing the old food over a week. Like you start with a mix of 25% new food and 75% old food for the first 2 days. Then you go 50-50 for days 3 and 4, then 75% new food and 25% old food. And finally, by day 7, they're completely on the new food.
Okay, so it's like a really gentle approach. What about the faster option? They mentioned a 4-day method too, right? How does that work?
Yeah, it follows the same basic idea, but it ramps up the new food more quickly. So day 1, you give them a quarter of their meal as I Love My Dog food. Day 2, it's half and half. Day 3, you're up to 3/4 I Love My Dog food. And then by day 4, they're fully transitioned. It might work for some dogs who have, tougher stomachs. But in general, sticking with that 7-day plan is probably best to avoid any, digestive issues.
Makes sense. It's great that they really emphasize the importance of doing this gradually. It shows they're really thinking about the practical side of things for pet owners. Now, they have this FAQ section on their website, and it covers some really common questions. One that stood out to me was, why is natural food better? What's their main argument there?
At the heart of it, it's all about the ingredients. They really hammer home the point that they use fresh, 100% natural stuff, and that they totally avoid artificial additives. Their position is that this is just the best way to nourish a dog because it aligns with their, biological needs for true well-being.
It's like what their bodies were designed for. Another big question they address is whether they offer medicated diets. What do they say about that?
They're very clear that their diets are not medicated. But they do suggest that their natural formulas might help dogs who have certain health problems, like, liver issues, obesity, allergies, sensitive stomachs, that sort of thing. But very importantly, they really stress that it's crucial to talk to your vet if your dog has any health concerns. It's a good approach, They're acknowledging that diet can play a role, but they're not trying to replace professional advice.
It's a balanced view, for sure. They also tackle the whole, can I leave the food out all day question, which is something a lot of dog owners wonder about. What's their take?
They recommend against it, actually. And it's not just for their food, but for any brand. They say it can cause digestive upset and suggest keeping leftovers in the fridge. It's pretty standard advice for food safety in general, for both us and our pets.
Right. It's just being cautious. Now, what about that transition process? Do you always have to go through it when you're switching to I Love My Dog?
They definitely recommend it for that initial switch, just to prevent any digestive issues.
But here's the good news. They say that once your dog has successfully made the switch to one of their flavors, you can actually switch between their different flavors without having to do that whole gradual thing again. That's pretty handy.
Yeah, that's nice. It gives you some flexibility. Okay, last question from the FAQ. They talk about whether diet should change depending on a dog's age. What's their opinion on that?
Oh, they're very clear on that. They say absolutely yes. Puppies, adult dogs, and senior dogs all have different nutritional needs at different points in their lives. And, get this, they actually have specific formulas for each life stage, which is pretty cool. It shows they're really thinking about how a dog's needs change as they grow.
It shows they're taking it seriously, which I like. Now, you also had that YouTube video transcript where they highlight some of their healthy ingredients. Anything stand out to you there? Yeah, it's interesting. They really connect their whole philosophy to actual ingredients. They focus on high-quality proteins like chicken and beef and talk about how they provide energy and support muscle growth, which is, obviously essential for an active dog.
Right, because you see protein listed on pretty much every dog food label, but their emphasis on it being high quality makes you wonder about where it comes from and how digestible it is.
Exactly. Then they move on to healthy fats, things like salmon oil, flaxseed oil, and coconut oil.
Yeah.
And they directly link those to a healthy coat, which, remember, was one of the benefits they talked about earlier. So they're making that connection explicit.
It's all tying together. And they also mention those easily digestible carbs, things like sweet potato and brown rice. They're positioning them as a source of sustained energy, instead of using those less nutritious fillers.
Right, because the type of carb you choose is really important. You want something that provides consistent energy without causing those sudden spikes and crashes in blood sugar. So, using whole grains like brown rice and veggies like sweet potatoes is a good strategy.
Makes sense. They also highlight vegetables like carrots, and they talk about how they're a good source of vitamins and fiber, which we know is so important for good digestion.
Absolutely. It's about getting those whole food ingredients that provide a range of micronutrients and support gut health.
And then finally, they mention omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids again, just reinforcing how important those are for overall health. It seems like they're really trying to educate dog owners on why they choose certain ingredients.
Yeah, it's not just about listing ingredients, it's about explaining what they do and how they contribute to the dog's well-being.
Right, it's about transparency and education. Okay, we also had that quick note about the founder, Carlos Calvet. It's always interesting to know a bit about the person behind the brand.
Yeah, it gives you a bit more context. You can sometimes get a sense of their motivations and values.
Absolutely. So to wrap up our deep dive into I Love My Dog, their main message seems to be all about feeding dogs a diet based on natural, whole food ingredients, while steering clear of those artificial additives. They highlight a whole bunch of potential health benefits, give you clear steps for making the transition, answer common questions about natural feeding, and even have special options for different life stages. It's a pretty comprehensive approach.
Yeah, that's a good summary. They've really created a strong story around natural feeding. It's clearly aimed at dog owners who want a more holistic approach to their pet's health and nutrition.
Right. So to you, our listener, after hearing all about I Love My Dog and their focus on fresh, natural ingredients and those potential benefits, what parts of your dog's current diet are you now thinking about differently? What other questions do you have about making sure your furry friend gets the very best nutrition possible? It's definitely something to consider. Thanks for diving deep with us today.